Welcome back, everybody. It's Drak and Shadow, and we're back. A dinosaur story. Wait, that's not what we're watching. We watched Solo, a Star Wars story. Or was it Solo, a dinosaur story? I can't keep all these stories straight anymore.
Late June, Alex. Late June. That's when the dinosaurs are coming back.
Right, okay.
Late June. So welcome to Solo, a Star Wars story. So very much in the vein of Rogue One. Any side story apparently now is just called a Star Wars story. Although, technically, Alex, we should feel bad for what we just watched. We should give it the failing grade that it deserves, according to Kathleen Kennedy, according to a lot of the media, according to whomever you want to pull out of your ass.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people wrote this movie off.
Yeah, well, it got written off financially by Disney, saying that they thought it was going to be a failure. It had lots of problems because, as we kind of pointed out on the podcast, its original directors were Phil Lord and Chris Miller, a.k.a. the creators of the Lego Movie. And so they got fired.
Yeah.
And then Ron Howard got brought in to take a 30% film and finish it. So... already we had to go through directors, and then we had all the controversy with the Colin Trevorrow and him getting taken off of episode 9 that kind of interfered with all this stuff. We had casting issues. There were tons of problems with this movie.
Yeah. So
technically, we shouldn't like this. Not just on the media standpoint. We shouldn't like it because it's a mess, right? Well, where did we end up?
It's not a mess. It's surprisingly a good movie.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess we just rebel.
Rebel.
That's the way it goes. Screw you, Kathleen Kennedy. This was actually a pretty good movie. Yeah, that was the weirdest part about it, is even Disney wrote this off. Disney, Lucasfilm, all of them, they wrote this off as a financial mess. They literally wrote it off as a bomb.
I think, unfortunately, probably is. I mean, I don't think it's going to regain its budget, unfortunately.
Well, time will tell, because I really do think that the reviews that are going to be coming out in the next week or so are at least going to boost its finances. But yeah, like the bottom line is that this was already going to be a risky project anyway, because you were taking a niche character in the Star Wars universe. That I'm saying niche for the moment, because if you go into the grand scheme of things, is Han Solo who a lot of people care about?
Well, yeah.
Not necessarily.
Where have you been? Han Solo is super popular.
Well,
the only one who hates him is Harrison Ford.
The only problem that I have with that is if let's just say, for the sake of argument, you put Han Solo up against, say, a Skywalker, I wonder if he would actually win. Because the bottom line is that at least the way I see it, Skywalker, like Solo's popular, don't get me wrong. Han Solo's popular, but compared to the Skywalkers, compared to, say, Leia, I don't know if he wins in that regard. It might be tied. But yeah, he is the lovable rogue. I'm not necessarily knocking him on that matter.
Right.
But I have a little bit of a confession right off the bat. I'm not one of those guys who likes Han Solo.
Ooh. It's okay. I like him, but I don't have any...
This is something that's literally followed me from childhood, is that if you gave me a choice between a character who wields a sword and a character who wields a gun, I will pick the character that wields a sword. I'm never usually... This is why I'm not a Westerns fan that much, is because gunslinging really isn't my thing. It's not entertaining to me. I'd rather have, a good old-fashioned sword fight. But the other problem is that he is the lovable rogue. He is a thief. He is intended to be more of a character you shouldn't necessarily trust, and I've always been kind of an ethical movie viewer kind of thing. So I always go towards who I know to be the good guys, not necessarily the tough guys with a heart of gold kind of thing. And so in a lot of cases, I'm not the biggest Han Solo fan. I don't hate him. In fact, I actually think that The Force Awakens probably has done the most for him in character development than an entire movie trilogy.
Oh no, I would.
I like Force Awakens Han.
He's great in Force Awakens, but boy, you're gonna draw some ire if you don't think that he's great in Empire.
Well, then I'm drawing ire because granted, Return of the Jedi. I hadn't seen Return of the Jedi yet, but yeah, this was me as a kid. Leia deserves to be with Luke. And then I saw Return of the Jedi. I went, oh, But at the same time, it's like, you're an idiot. You're a nerf herder. I hate you, Han. I hate that Leia ended up with you. That's kind of my viewpoint on the matter.
Oh, shit. You were a Luke
and then I laughed
shipper.
at Return of the Jedi because he basically got relegated to a comic relief character. So at that point, he wasn't that entertaining. But to me, like, the most character development that made me like Han was in Force Awakens. And it was simply because at that point he'd had his rebellious stripe. He'd had a lot of those insane moments. And now he was a much more down-to-earth kind of character than he ever was to me.
You grew up.
As I grew up. Okay, again, if you gave me a choice between Luke and Han, I'd probably pick Luke. Because Luke wields the sword, and sword equals better. Okay? I'm not... So for all the people who want to come out and fight me now... That's not necessarily the case.
Direct your hate mail to @Drak2326.
You can go ahead and do so, and I'll bounce back. So don't worry too much about it. But yeah, so that's now that we've gotten that confession out of the way, we both. And here's the thing that's also funny: when we saw all the stuff saying no, you shouldn't watch this movie, you shouldn't like it, and all that, we saw the trailers and we were like, yeah, we kind of like it.
It's fine. I mean,
it looks fine. You know, it looks good.
I mean, you always have to take trailers with a grain of salt because. If you can't, in the case you might get a Suicide Squad, I mean, I don't agree with this point, but there will be people who argue, hey, Suicide Squad, the trailer was better than the movie because, you know, they had a whole different team edit that trailer together. And yeah, I mean, that's such a, I'm going to probably bring up Suicide Squad a lot because I've got a feeling this is going to be Suicide Squad for Star Wars, where a lot of, and I don't mean, I know that's instantly going to draw. The best
characterization I can make is like it's a Western for Star Wars.
I don't mean
it
like
really feels like
I don't mean like it's similar to Suicide Squad. I just
no.
I mean like the way Suicide Squad was received, and both having kind of those troubled productions with some behind the scenes drama and crap going on, and that's where I'm really meaning.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that.
But... And where a lot of people are going to be like, no, this movie sucked, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the main problem that people are going to have with your characterization is like, it's not like it had multiple characters in the Star Wars universe. It had two or three, so I can go with you there. But the rest were supposed to be the people who kind of ironed out Han as a character, and hence why he's the lovable rogue jack of all trades that he is.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So yeah, there we go. And then I'm also going to point this out because somebody's going to bring it up. In the early days of the Geek News podcast, I was actually again, I'm not a Han Solo fan, guys. I actually frowned on this idea when it was originally conceived because I did cover like the ideas that the then Lucasfilm that was now purchased by Star Wars was coming up with. And one of the ideas they came up with was a Han Solo story.
You just said Lucasfilm purchased by Star Wars. You mean Disney?
Oh, sorry, yeah, purchased by Disney. My bad. Star Wars purchased by Disney. You guys get it. The almighty mouse owns them.
They own everything.
And one of the original ideas that they said was, we're going to do this trilogy. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And then one of the other things they said they wanted to do was a bunch of side stories, including one about Han Solo. And I'm just like sitting there going, well, Han doesn't have a whole lot of backstory that has been written out. The only written out stuff I know of is the expanded universe aspect of him being an Imperial cadet and seeing an oppressed Chewbacca, and therefore releasing a bunch of Wookiee slaves and therefore leaving the Empire to go and be a smuggler, which this movie kind of wrote over. So, and I think it's canon, isn't it? Like all the side stories are considered canon.
Yeah, I believe so.
So, yeah, at this point, like that was the only story I could think of, and this movie found a bunch of other stories to actually go and tell, like how he got his blaster, how he got the Millennium Falcon, how it ended up as wrecked as it was. This movie had quite a bit of story to tell compared to what I actually thought it was. So yeah, I'm eating a little bit of crow today. Considering how much story they actually had to tell. But let's get into it.
Yeah.
What did we like about Solo, a Star Wars story?
This was good. The casting was good. I mean, there were, like we said, there were those troubles. Those were those sayings that Alden Enright, boy, he can't act. He's got to get an acting coach. He pulled it off, though.
Well, and the funniest part about that is we've heard all that stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
And you'll remember way back when, a couple of years ago, we watched a movie by the name of Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
And what was one of the things we both ended up liking from Hail Caesar? Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah.
So at that, if we're saying his name wrong, I'm sorry. But it was just like, he ended up being Han Solo. Yeah, that actually is a really good casting choice.
He worked. I mean, there'll never be a substitution for Harrison Ford. We know Harrison's one of a million.
But the thing you have to realize is that, well, Harrison Ford's like 70 years old now.
I think he's a little older, actually.
I think, isn't he? Is he like mid 70s or early 80s?
I think he's in his 80s now.
Yeah, so at that point, he doesn't have a whole lot left, guys.
Plus, he doesn't want to do this character anymore. That's why that's the only reason he ever came back.
He's retired from acting, hasn't he?
No, he's still acting, I think.
Oh, okay, because somebody sent me an article saying like Blade Runner was going to be his last. And then I got sent another article going, no, Indy 5 is going to be his last. And he said hell no to that. And
weird, he still wants to do Indiana Jones, but it's like he just wanted out of Han Solo forever. It's like since Empire he wanted out of Han Solo, but he's still willing to do Indiana Jones.
Well, I think it's just because I'm going to give props here to Harrison Ford. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall because, I mean, look at Return of the Jedi. Did it really have anything major to do for Han? Not really. Empire kind of told an arc with him. And at that point, having him come back in Return of the Jedi was, if you think about it in a weird way, kind of a bad idea aside from setting him up with Leia. So at that point, it's like, maybe he saw the writing on the wall and said, yeah, I need to bow out of this franchise. I'm done.
Yeah, guess so.
Maybe that's the way it needed to go. But anyway, other likes that you had.
Likes. A lot of great shots in this. You know, we've talked about Han Solo's kind of a cowboy. Star Wars has always had the Western space. And
by the way, who better of a director to be able to do it? I don't know if Ron's actually done Westerns, but I mean, he grew up in the era of Westerns.
Yeah. I'm sure he was in a few Westerns as a little child.
No, I mean directed them. I don't know if he's directed them.
Didn't he? He did Cowboys versus Aliens, didn't he?
I don't know.
I swear he did.
I don't know off the top of my head.
No, he produced it. He produced it.
Okay.
He didn't direct it. Okay.
Now, as far as like him being in Westerns, maybe as a kid, however, his brother Clint has been in his share. Yeah. So and I do know occasionally Clint has helped out in production. All right. Yeah. So it may just be like, given the Western feel they went for this, Clint probably helped out a bit.
Yeah. There's a lot of those great kind of cowboy shots, like the cowboy standing for the draw, and you see it so frequently, especially with Han. You know, the blaster at his side, and the shot's right there up between his legs here, and it's like you're ready for him to pull his pistol out and shoot. And those are some really great shots to kind of reinforce Han is this cowboy. He's a space cowboy. See a space cowboy.
Spike Spiegel, he is not, though.
No. Only Steve Blum can be.
Who would win in a fight between Han Solo and Spike Spiegel?
That's a good question.
No one. Either way, fangirls are going to walk away crying. So, yeah, I actually kind of agree with you. A lot of the shots were damn amazing. And that was one of the compliments that I had towards Rogue One as well, is that you had these really, really great shots setting up the threats, setting up the situations. And this one did it too. So much so that I had this random thought happen throughout, and I even mentioned it to you. I'm like, this would make a really great movie tie-in game. we were at the scene of, by the way, spoilers.
The train, yeah.
Yeah, they were doing the train, and I'm just like sitting there going, dude, this would be an amazing game level right there.
But no, EA just wants to milk Battlefront for all it's worth.
Well, I wouldn't want EA doing it. I know,
but this is one of those times where
Disney should have reached out and said, any one of you guys want to take it? And I'm pretty sure they would have had about 1 million takers.
Yeah.
Just like, Naughty Dog, yes, please, yes. Because they want to be able to do it.
Yeah. You could just build a Han Solo game out of the Uncharted engine and boom.
Oh, well, I mean, they did. It was Star Wars 1313 and it got canceled.
Yeah, thanks, Disney.
Yeah, actually, no, this was not Disney. This was LucasArts and their failings before Disney bought them.
Okay.
So that's why 1313 got canceled, is because by the time Disney got brought in, it was dead. The writing was on the wall at that point. But yeah, like this actually would have made an amazing movie tie-in game if you got the right team behind it.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying Naughty Dog, but there's a ton of other studios that do Uncharted-esque games and do it just as well. So at that point, like, any of them could have made a Han Solo story that would have been very compelling. Now, sadly, one of those teams is under the EA umbrella, but I don't think that would have been a good idea, and it's just because EA would be breathing down their necks.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So anyway, you mentioned cinematography, you mentioned the casting.
Yeah.
You liked a lot of the casting there, and I tend to agree with you on that too. Especially Woody Harrelson. Like,
yeah, Woody's great.
Woody Harrelson is one of those actors that whenever he gets put in, I don't question the idea of putting him in, I question the role you put him in. Because at that point, like, in my opinion, Woody Harrelson way too many times gets put into a scene where he chews the scenery and he should be the spotlight kind of thing. A perfect example of this would be Hunger Games. I think you had a perfectly awesome actor that could have been able to be put in 6 other places in this series, and you put him in an advisory role where he just sits there and chews the scenery and drinks all the time.
Right.
Kind of thing. And in this case, not what happened. He basically was the Clint Eastwood. Like, if there's a Clint Eastwood character, it isn't Han Solo in this movie.
No,
it is Tobias Beckett, and the cool part about that is that they gave him like legit, you should fear his ass lore. So,
especially when he would do like just re-emphasizing the whole Western motif, they went strongly with this. He would even do the gunslinging and the twirling pistols, iconic Western stuff.
Well, the other thing that I was kind of alluding to is, like, there was actually a lot of Easter eggs in this, alluding to expanded universe that is no longer canon. But then they put in this, and that to me established him as a badass, because they actually said, "Oh, dude, are you the guy that tracked down Aura Singh?" Okay. There are very few absolute badass bounty hunters in the Star Wars universe. Okay. IG-88, not one of them. Aura Singh is the badass until Boba Fett came along. Okay. And a lot of people assumed in expanded lore, Boba took out Aura Singh. That's not the case. They actually were friends. So at that point, giving Tobias Beckett the kill of Aura Singh makes him the nastiest dude on the planet in the universe.
Wow.
In a lot of cases. So that was actually a really good decision. And now I want to, like, now that they've said they're going to do a
Boba Fett movie.
Well, they're going to do a Boba Fett movie, but they're also going to do a comic based on Tobias Beckett. Now I want to buy it, because that to me just says, oh my gosh, this guy screams badass now.
Yeah.
He took out freaking Aura Singh. So I like that concept. And then another Easter egg that if I don't mention, people are going to get pissed at me because I'm the game guy. Yes, Terrace Kasi. I noticed it too. You remember the interrogation or when they went to Kessel? Mm-hmm. And I can't remember. Kira, was that her name?
Yeah, Kira.
When Kira was put in the room with the diplomat, all of a sudden she does all those freakish moves, and L3's like, how on earth did you learn that? She says Terrace Kasi. Okay. Terrace Kasi is a martial art in the Star Wars universe. It is only wielded by one person. I'm not saying that she is this person, but people might remember of a failed PlayStation game, a fighting game based on the Star Wars universe called Masters of Terrace Kasi. And that's what it's referencing. So that's actually really cool, considering the expanded universe isn't canon. So I got to throw that out there. Anyway, more likes. Sorry.
More likes. I like John Powell's music here. He did an excellent job with it, especially reusing some of the John Williams motifs. Yeah. And making up a lot of new stuff.
And also re-owning them to make them more Westernish for the story.
Yeah.
So...
great visual effects, of course. The train scene's great. That's such a great action piece. There's a lot of great action pieces in this.
I would say a lot of the shots with the Kessel Run were also pretty freaking great.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you'll need to clarify this for me, but was this Ron's crew that stepped in? I
have no idea how many would be.
Because that was like the question I was asking. Is like, is this Ron's cinematographer? It doesn't really feel like Ron's cinematographer.
Probably not, because I bet a lot of these people would have had to been hired by
for people who don't know what we're talking about. Directors usually have like their specific people that they work with.
Yeah, they have a posse.
But considering that Ron kind of came in with a crew already there working on it, it's very unlikely, and a lot of these things kind of feel like, no, his crew wasn't brought in.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's another good stamp to Ron Howard as far as I'm concerned. He worked with a crew that was completely unfamiliar to him.
Yeah, because I would have to imagine that a lot of the crew were probably hired by the Millers, and when they got booted, Howard had to kind of pick up the pieces where they left off, and take way too much time to of course completely rehire a brand new crew.
And on top of that, I'm pretty sure Kathleen kept him on a deadline, and so at that point he just said, no, I'm just gonna make it work.
Yeah.
And maybe because Clint showed up, like with every Ron Howard movie there's an obligatory Clint Howard appearance, so with Clint there's already a lot of experience there. We're talking about an actor who's been there far longer than Ron, so you had a lot of experience there, and I have a feeling Clint helped out with quite a bit in the process of it. Any other likes?
Let me think. Other likes. Yeah, I said the action pieces are really great. There's a lot, just that solid action. Yeah, I think those sum up my likes. Good casting all around.
Yep.
Alden Enright is great. Donald Glover is great.
Was that Donald Glover?
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out who it was.
Yeah, it was Donald Glover. We've been covering this for how long?
See, and part of me was like sitting there in my head going, is that Donald Glover? Because Spider-Man's thrown me off on Donald Glover.
Yeah, Donald Glover's great. He really captures
he played
charm of Lando.
I would actually say he outdid Billy D. Williams.
He out Billy Deed.
He out Billy Deed because he actually had more of a spotlight to work with than Billy D.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of in there with you. A lot of the shots really, really worked, especially any shot that involved. I'm just gonna say in general Han piloting. Anything that involved him piloting, whether it be him at the cockpit and you having to show that he's focused, or showing the actual ship doing whatever he's asking it to do. I thought all of those shots really, really worked. I also did like a lot of the Western style shots, like the shootouts and everything like that. That's why I'm saying like this has a lot of like influence in Westerns.
Yeah.
The transport ship on the snow planet, that was actually another really good moment to kind of establish Han getting into the smuggler trade.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that I think it helped was that it wasn't necessarily there to establish Han. It was there to establish Woody Harrelson's character. It was there to establish Tobias Beckett. Yeah, we'd seen him do some gunslinging on another planet, but we needed to see like up against legit pirates and marauders, like if he could hold his own. And he did. And it worked for him. It worked to sell him.
Yeah. And the kind of drag race, the race through the streets of Corneria or what's the planet called?
Corellia.
God, I always want to call it the Star Fox planet. Damn it!
That's all right. It's pretty close.
Corellia. I liked that. That really kind of reminds me a bit of American Graffiti, which had Ron Howard, which was directed by George Lucas, which was a Star Wars property. There you go. 6 degrees of separation.
The more you know. So we've talked this movie's praises. Let's start talking shit. Is there any dislikes that we can bring up about Solo: A Star Wars Story?
I didn't like when Tobias said, it's like when he kind of gave the warning. It's like, oh, watch your back. At some point, someone's gonna betray you. I'm like, okay, obvious foreshadowing's obvious. He's gonna double cross Han later.
Sure. And
sure enough, he did. Now, it bothered me at first.
You might actually say that it's so Western it was kind of predictable.
Yeah. That bothered me at first, but it started to mitigate because there was sort of a lot of those kind of last minute twists and turns of double crossing. It's like,
yeah, I think it wasn't necessarily supposed to be like, it was supposed to be horribly predictable, but it was more meant to paint Han as a better strategist than anybody gives him credit for.
Yeah, because I think it was made up by the point when he says, "Hey, you people are predictable." When he says that to Woody Harrelson's character, he's like, "People are predictable," and then of course he's like, "Yep, just Han was on top of you too."
Yep. Jeez, like stuff that I legitimately disliked. It's actually kind of hard.
Yeah.
In this film, there was a lot of stuff that I did like. I will admit the Corellia scene dragged a little bit, and it's just because we didn't need to necessarily know that he was kind of an oppressed kid. We already kind of got that feeling, but the airport scene kind of made up for it because it set stakes for Han for him to go into even the seedier element of the universe to get Kira back. So it's like one of those things where, yeah, it did this thing wrong, but then it made up for it later.
Yeah.
The other thing I will also give it a little bit of credit, I'm kind of there with you, is that it was so Western, it was predictable. But again, I think that it makes up for it in the fact that, you know, everybody kind of writes off Han in this entire movie. And in the end, he is probably the smartest guy walking out of it. Like, dare I say, like, he's probably the smartest guy walking out of it. He's the guy who literally thought, so like if Tobias was thinking 2 steps ahead, then Han was thinking 4, is the way that this movie kind of paints it all out to be. I will say that one dislike that eventually started to trickle up and become a problem was all the references, okay? I like the fact that we were being told about how Han got his blaster. We didn't need to know about Chewbacca's temper with the hollow board, all right? That seems kind of dumb to me. We didn't actually need to see Chewbacca rip somebody's arms off, especially if this is supposed to be like the Ocean's 11 of crew in the Star Wars universe, and he wrecked a disguise for Han. So we didn't need to necessarily have that moment. And people are going to get so pissed at me for doing this, but the Darth Maul reference at the end was kind of where the straw broke the camel's back, in my opinion, because to me, I'm just kind of sitting there going, that's a really great reference. And yes, it's a reference to Clone Wars and to Rebels, because eventually Maul gets in control of it's the Black Sun organization, which is part of those.
Oh, really? He controls the Black Sun?
Well, that's the one that's the cartel he runs. But the other ones are umbrellaed under it.
Right.
And so at that point, I know why you did that, but then I'm just kind of sitting here going, this is the biggest cock block ever, because you're never going to do a movie based off of Maul or based off of Kira trying to get away from Maul. All of the story that we already know about with Maul has been told either in Clone Wars or in Rebels, where he actually died. Okay? I'm not saying he fake died. I'm not saying that they brought him back. I'm saying he actually died. So at that point, it's just like, well, do we really need to know that this is the guy that you're working for? Aside from putting Ray Park back in the makeup? Not really.
Yeah, I guess not.
It didn't really help all that much.
Maybe they're setting up a novel or something.
Yeah, there's going to be a comic, I think, for Kira. But, you know, at that point, if you had actually said that, like, Kira changed her name to, I don't know, Mara Jade or Arden Lynn, then I'd be okay with it. But she's not. And so at that point, it's like, okay, this is feeling like way too much, and I need the references to stop. Thankfully, after that one, the references stopped.
Yeah.
All right, and things kind of got to go back to a regular pace. But that's kind of the problem that I have, is like it was a steady upbeat of references, and then and then that happened. I'm just like, oh well, this is gonna have no payoff, and thankfully they all ended. So I was also kind of hoping that we would get some kind of an allusion to Boba Fett. That didn't happen in this movie, so I'm kind of wondering, like, how we know that there's some kind of a hatred between Boba and Han. I guess that'll be addressed in the Boba Fett movie,
probably.
So that's really my my dislike, is that there were probably too many references near the end, and that kind of made the story drag a little bit.
Right.
All right. So there you go. We've liked it. We've disliked it. Where is it in the final score area?
I'm going to give it a 9. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm going to give it a 9 too. I think it's a solid A effort, considering that this is a character that, in my opinion, didn't have a whole lot of story to go with, but, well, Phil Lord and Chris Miller and Ron Howard kind of proved that wrong and said, no, we want to be able to tell this story and this story and this story and this story, and it worked because it all came together. So yeah, I'll probably be there with you. Now, how much would we actually recommend people pay to see Solo: A Star Wars Story?
You know, don't believe the negative hype or negative publicity about this movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah, see it.
Just see it any way you any way you want. Make it for your budget, of course.
It's kind of like me and Romney kind of said the same thing. I don't know if you were saying it too, but after we saw Rogue One, we were just like, you know what? If you were kind of iffy about Force Awakens, go see Rogue One.
Yeah.
Because you will at least get a story that isn't necessarily a new trilogy, but it's still freaking good. The same thing applies here, because we still have the controversy around Episode 8. If you're not on board with Last Jedi, I honestly think you'll be on board with Solo.
Yeah, I say go see Solo if you have a lot of problems with Episode 8, and there's a lot to pick apart.
And at least at that
movie.
point, you don't have to worry about a boring casino plot, because every time that they're in a casino, it lasts for 10 minutes.
And it actually does something for the plot.
Yes, it does. So there you go. I mean, like, you don't have to worry about the casino plot, because the casino is the plot.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say go and see it. It's worth your money to go and check it out. At the very least, see it once. Would I recommend seeing it in any of the extravagances? 3D, I don't know if this movie would help it.
I probably would not see this. There's a decent amount of, shaky cam in it.
There's a couple of moments. Atmos, I think, would help this film. I'd almost want to see this in Atmos, just to see if, like, it helps the blaster sounds and all that stuff. It helps you get immersed a little bit more. But that's the only one, really, that I'm thinking of. Is Atmos, I think, would aid it, but everything else, I think, would hurt it. Especially like D-Box, dude, your seat would be vibrating like 80% of the movie.
Yeah.
And that might actually get like either really relaxing or really annoying. So yeah, that's it. And I think that's going to go ahead and do it for our review of Solo, a Star Wars story.
Solo.
Thank you guys so much for listening in and watching, and we appreciate your love and your support.